Hello, welcome to another video on our channel. Here we translate testimonies from people who have had near-death experiences and other spiritual experiences. Today we are going to learn about the history of Aslan Xochimilco. He says he died and discovered that we are deceived about what really matters. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. Leave a comment with your name and city. Now let's listen to Aslan's testimony. Hello, my name is Aslan Xochimilco. I'm a 50-year-old man, born and raised in vibrant Mexico City. My life has always been defined by the pursuit of success and academic recognition. I spent years dedicated to studying, culminating in obtaining my doctorate. This achievement filled me with pride and opened doors to a promising career in the academic world. Before the event that changed my life, I was known for my dedication to work and my tireless ambition. My days were filled with classes, research, and publications. Although this routine brought me professional satisfaction, I now realize that there was a void in my existence that I tried to fill with achievements and titles. My story begins in December 2001, during what was supposed to be a simple ski trip in Valle de Bravo. I was looking forward to a few days of rest away from the hustle and bustle of the city, an opportunity to disconnect from work and relax in the snow-capped mountains. Little did I know that this trip would become a turning point in my life, causing me to question everything I believed was important. What happened on that snowy mountain was not just an accident, but the beginning of a journey of self-discovery and transformation. The experience I had completely changed my perspective on life, success, and what really matters in this world. This is the story I want to share with you today. I hope that by sharing my experience, I can inspire others to reflect on their own lives and priorities. My journey is a testament to the transformative power that a near-death experience can have, and how it can lead us to rediscover the true meaning of existence. Prepare for a narrative that will take you from the snowy slopes of Valle de Bravo to a realm beyond human understanding, and back to a life transformed by the power of altruism and compassion. It was a cold December morning when I arrived in Valle de Bravo. The frigid air nibbled at my face as I unloaded my gear from the car. The ski resort was busy, full of tourists eager to enjoy the fresh snow that had fallen overnight. I confess that I was excited like a child. The sight of the snow-capped mountains glistening in the winter sun was breathtaking. The aroma of pine trees mixed with the smell of hot chocolate and churros coming from a nearby stand. The festive atmosphere was infectious, and I could feel the tension of work melting away as I prepared to climb the mountain. I put on my blue and red ski suit, a gift I had bought for myself after completing my doctorate. I adjusted my boots, put on my goggles, and grabbed my skis. The line for the gondola wasn't very long, and I soon found myself heading up the mountain, watching the landscape become more and more impressive as we gained altitude. I vividly remember the feeling of anticipation building in my chest. As the gondola ascended, I could see the runs winding down the mountain, some defiantly steep, others gentler and more inviting. I mentally planned my route, deciding to start with an intermediate track to warm up before trying something more challenging. When I finally reached the top, I was momentarily out of breath. The view was spectacular. A vast white sea of snow-capped mountains stretched as far as the eye could see, punctuated here and there by the dark green of winter-hardy pines. The sky was crystal blue, without a single cloud in sight. The air was so pure and cold that it almost hurt to breathe. With a smile on my face, I adjusted my skis and positioned myself at the edge of the slope. For a moment I stood there, savoring the feeling of freedom and the adrenaline that was beginning to course through my veins. Then with a push of the poles, I launched myself down the track. The feeling was intoxicating. The biting wind in my face, the gentle sound of the skis cutting through the snow, the speed with which I was descending the mountain, it all combined to create an almost euphoric experience. I felt alive, free, connected to nature in a way I rarely experienced in my everyday city life. Little did I know that within minutes, this feeling of euphoria would turn to terror, and my life would change forever. I was feeling confident after successfully completing my first descent. I decided to try a more challenging track. Adrenaline coursed through my veins as I headed towards a steeper area of the mountain. The start was perfect. I deftly weaved between other skiers, feeling the cold wind on my face and the gentle crunch of snow beneath my skis. My body moved in sync with the mountain, making graceful, controlled turns. It was then that I spotted an area that looked particularly tempting, a steep descent that promised a burst of speed. Without hesitation, I aimed my skis there, eager to feel the thrill of a faster descent. However, as soon as I entered that section, I realized my mistake. What I thought was fresh snow was actually a layer of treacherous ice. My skis lost their grip and I suddenly found myself sliding uncontrollably. It all happened in a matter of seconds, but it felt like an eternity. I tried desperately to regain control, tilting my body and digging my poles into the snow, but it was futile. The world around me turned into a white blur as I picked up speed. Suddenly, I felt my skis catch on something, perhaps a rock hidden beneath the snow or an irregularity in the terrain. I was violently thrown forward, my body spinning in the air. The impact was brutal. I fell hard, feeling a sharp pain explode in my right hand. When I finally stopped rolling, I lay in the snow, dazed and panting. The pain in my hand was unbearable. I looked down and saw that my thumb was at a strange, unnatural angle. Panic began to set in when I realized the gravity of the situation. I tried to get up, but the pain was overwhelming. I screamed for help, my voice echoing off the mountain. Fortunately, other skiers soon spotted me and came to my rescue. One of them, who identified himself as a doctor, quickly examined my hand and confirmed what I already feared. My thumb was broken and would need immediate medical attention. The ski resort's rescue team arrived within minutes. They carefully placed me on a stretcher and began to transport me down the mountain. The descent was slow and painful, each bump sending waves of pain through my body. As I was taken to the local hospital, I couldn't help but think about the irony of the situation. I had come to the mountains looking for relaxation and freedom, and now I was stuck on a stretcher, in pain and afraid of what came next. Little did I know that this accident would be just the beginning of a much deeper and transformative journey. Arrival at the hospital was a blur of frantic activity. I was quickly taken to the emergency room, where a team of doctors and nurses began examining me. The pain in my thumb was excruciating, and I could barely concentrate on what was happening around me. It was at that moment that I met Nurse Isabella Morales. His calm and compassionate face was like a beacon of tranquility amidst the chaos. She held my good hand and spoke to me in a low, comforting voice, reassuring me that I was in good hands. Dr. Rafael Ortega, the surgeon on duty, arrived soon after. He examined my thumb carefully, his serious expression telling me everything I needed to know before he even spoke. "We're going to need surgery to fix this," he said, his voice firm but gentle. "I know it's scary, but we'll be here to take care of you." The next few hours were a whirlwind of exams, x-rays, and preparations for surgery. My thumb was incredibly swollen, and the pain, despite painkillers, was constant. Isabella stayed by my side throughout the process, explaining each step and keeping me as calm as possible. As I waited for surgery, I couldn't help but reflect on how my life had changed so dramatically in a matter of hours. Suddenly, all the worries that had seemed so important that morning, work, status, academic achievements, seemed insignificant against the reality of my current situation. Finally, it was time for surgery. I was wheeled into the operating room, my heart pounding in my chest. The bright lights, the smell of antiseptic, and the sound of medical equipment created a surreal atmosphere. Isabella was there, holding my hand and comforting me while the medical team made the final preparations. The anesthetist explained the procedure and began preparing the injection. It was at that moment that something went terribly wrong. The anesthesiologist had to leave the room momentarily, leaving Isabella to supervise. Suddenly, I felt a sharp, intense pain in my arm where the anesthetic had been injected. A feeling of intense heat began to spread through my body, followed by an overwhelming dizziness. My vision started to darken around the edges, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I tried to speak, to tell someone something was wrong, but my voice wouldn't come out. The last sounds I heard were the frantic beeping of monitors and alarmed voices around me. Then everything went dark. At that moment, unbeknownst to me, I was about to embark on the most profound and transformative experience of my life, a journey that would take me beyond the limits of physical existence and make me question everything I believed I knew about life and its meaning. What happened next is difficult to describe in words. It's like trying to explain colors to someone who's never seen it, or music to someone who's never heard it. But I will do my best to share this extraordinary experience. Suddenly, I felt separated from my body. It was as if I were floating above the operating table, observing the scene below. I saw my own body, still and pale, surrounded by panicked doctors and nurses. Their voices sounded distant and muffled, as if they were coming from underwater. I watched, with surreal detachment, as they tried to revive me. I saw Dr. Ortega performing chest compressions, Isabella administering medications, the anesthesiologist rushing back into the room. It was like watching a movie, except the protagonist was myself. Strangely, I didn't feel scared. On the contrary, I experienced a feeling of deep peace and tranquility. The pain that once dominated my consciousness had completely disappeared. It was then that I felt a presence beside me. I couldn't see anything definite, but I felt a gentle hand rest on my head, or what I perceived as my head in that state. A calm, comforting voice whispered, "Get out of here. Now is not your time." At that moment, I felt myself being pulled away from the hospital scene. The operating room disappeared, and I found myself traveling through a tunnel of bright light. The sensation was indescribable, a mixture of dizzying speed and complete stillness, of movement and absolute stillness. I emerged into a place I can only describe as a heavenly meadow. The tall grass swayed gently, although I didn't feel any wind. The sky above was an impossibly blue, deeper and more vibrant than anything I've ever seen on Earth. The light that permeated everything was soft and welcoming, with no apparent source. In this meadow, every blade of grass, every particle of air seemed alive and conscious. I could feel the energy pulsing around me, as if the universe itself was breathing with me. The feeling of peace and well-being that surrounded me was overwhelming. Every worry, fear, or anxiety I had ever experienced simply dissolved. In the distance, I saw a huge tree. It stood majestically, its branches stretching in all directions, its leaves shining with a light of its own. I felt irresistibly drawn to her, as if she were calling me. As I approached the tree, I realized it was much more than it seemed. Each leaf contained entire universes. Each branch was a repository of cosmic knowledge. It was as if all the wisdom of the universe was contained in that single tree. Without hesitation, I started to climb. As I climbed, I felt myself merge with the tree. It was no longer Aslan climbing a tree, it was consciousness itself exploring the secrets of the cosmos. Each movement took me deeper into understanding the fundamental nature of reality. I continued my ascent up the cosmic tree, each movement taking me deeper into the mysteries of the universe. The glowing leaves whispered ancient secrets in a language I couldn't understand with my ears, but that resonated deep within my soul. The branches moved gently, guiding me upward as if the tree itself was inviting me to explore its deepest secrets. As I climbed, I felt more and more connected to everything around me. The distinction between my being and the tree began to fade. It was no longer Aslan climbing a tree, but consciousness itself exploring the complexities of the cosmos. Each leaf I touched conveyed to me glimpses of realities beyond my understanding. Universes being born and dying, the ebb and flow of cosmic energies, the eternal dance of creation and destruction. When I finally reached the top of the tree, I was amazed at what I saw. Before me, hovering in the air, was a luminous cloud that emanated a sacred aura. The light emanating from it was unlike anything I had ever experienced. It was not blinding, but soft and welcoming, inviting me in. Without hesitation, I dove into the light. The moment I did, I felt a burst of consciousness. It was as if every atom of my being was being purified and illuminated by a mysterious and benevolent power. I felt connected to all of existence, as if I could feel the pulse of the universe within me. In this state of expanded consciousness, I began to relive moments from my life. I saw my childhood, full of curiosity and dreams. I relived my years of study, the sleepless nights, the dedication that led me to my doctorate. I saw my successes and failures, my joys and sadness. But something was different. Now I saw these moments not only through my eyes, but also through the eyes of everyone who was affected by my actions. I could feel the gratitude of those I helped, the pain of those I hurt, even unintentionally. I saw how every action, every word, every choice I made created ripples that spread far beyond what I could have imagined. It was then that I heard a voice, the same gentle voice that guided me out of the hospital. "What was the most important moment in your life?" he asked. Without hesitation, my mind went back to a moment I had almost forgotten. Years ago, I had helped a lost boy find his parents in a crowded park. At the time, it seemed like an insignificant gesture, but now I could see the profound impact it had, not just on the boy and his family's lives, but on how that act of kindness inspired them to help others, creating a chain of positive events that continued to the present. The voice continued, "The system and the media make us believe in false values, but what really matters is the good we do for people." At that moment, I felt a wave of shame and regret. How many times had I ignored opportunities to help others in my quest for success and recognition? How many human connections had I neglected in favor of academic achievement? But along with this realization came a sense of renewed purpose. If I had the chance to go back, I would do things differently. I would dedicate my life not just to knowledge, but to applying that knowledge for the good of others. With that resolution firmly in my heart, I felt myself being pulled back. The light began to dissipate and the world around me began to change. The transition back into the physical world was as sudden as my departure. In a moment, I was immersed in celestial light, filled with cosmic knowledge and renewed purpose. The next, I was abruptly pulled back into earthly reality, my consciousness returning to my body with the force of a rubber band stretched to its maximum, and then released. The first thing I noticed was the pain. My entire body hurt, especially my right hand. The sounds around me were a chaos of beeping monitors and agitated voices. Slowly, I opened my eyes, blinking against the bright light of the operating room. I saw familiar faces leaning over me. Dr. Ortega with beads of sweat on his forehead. Isabella, her eyes wide with relief and concern. I heard someone say, "He's back," and I felt a flurry of activity around me. I tried to speak, but my throat felt dry and scratchy. Isabella quickly brought a glass of water with a straw, helping me take a few careful sips. The cold water was a shock to my system, grounding me even more firmly in reality. "Welcome back, Mr. Xochimilco," Dr. Ortega said, his voice betraying both tiredness and relief. "You gave us quite a scare." Little by little, I was informed about what had happened. He had suffered a severe allergic reaction to the anesthetic, leading to cardiac arrest. For several minutes, I was clinically dead. The medical team had fought tirelessly to bring me back, and they almost failed. As I absorbed this information, my mind was spinning. How could I explain to them what I had experienced? How could I describe the incredible journey my consciousness had undertaken in these few earthly minutes? I decided at that moment to keep my experience to myself, at least for now. Instead, I focused on thanking the medical team for their heroic efforts to save my life. The days that followed were a whirlwind of tests, constant monitoring, and visits from specialists. My body was exhausted, but my mind was more alert than ever. Every waking moment was filled with reflections on what I had experienced and what it meant for my life going forward. At night, when the hospital ward was quiet, I found myself replaying every detail of my near-death experience. The feeling of absolute peace, the cosmic tree, the purifying light, it all felt so lived in, so real. And the lessons I learned, they echoed in my mind constantly, challenging me to rethink every aspect of my existence. Isabella, who had become a constant and comforting presence during my recovery, noticed that something had changed in me. "You look different," she commented one day while checking my vitals. More at peace somehow. I smiled at her, feeling a rush of gratitude for her care and compassion. I think I've undergone a transformation, I replied simply. As my physical strength returned, my determination to live a different life grew. I knew I couldn't just go back to my old routine, chasing academic recognition and social status. The voice I heard during my experience resonated in my mind. What really matters is the good we do for people. I started making plans. As soon as I was discharged, I would begin significant changes in my life. It wouldn't be easy, he knew that. Old habits are hard to break, and the world around me wouldn't change just because I had. But I was determined to try. As I prepared to leave the hospital, I felt a mixture of anxiety and excitement. My transformation journey was just beginning, and I couldn't wait to see where it would take me. The days following my release from the hospital were a time of intense introspection and adjustment. I returned to my home in Mexico City, but the familiar surroundings now felt strange, almost alien. The books on my shelves, the diplomas hanging on the walls, all symbols of my former self, felt like they belonged to someone else. My physical recovery was slow and at times frustrating. My thumb, now surgically repaired, was still in a cast and sore. I had to relearn simple everyday tasks, from tying my shoelaces to typing on the computer. Each challenge, however, served as a reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing each moment. But while my body struggled to heal, my mind was more active than ever. I spent hours every day meditating on my near-death experience, trying to understand its deeper meaning and how I could apply the lessons I learned to my everyday life. I reread my old journals and academic articles, seeing them now with new eyes. I realized how often my quest for recognition and status had overshadowed opportunities to make a real difference in people's lives. I felt a mixture of regret and determination. Regret for the time lost, but determination to do better from now on. I started researching charitable organizations and volunteer groups in my area. I wanted to find concrete ways to put my new life purpose into practice. I discovered a local NGO that worked with homeless children, offering education and support. I contacted them, eager to volunteer my time and skills as soon as I was physically able. I also spent a lot of time reflecting on my relationships. I realized how I had neglected friendships and family connections in my quest for professional success. I started making calls, reconnecting with old friends and family I hadn't seen in years. These conversations were sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes emotional, but always deeply rewarding. One night I received an unexpected visitor. Isabella, the nurse who had taken care of me at the hospital, appeared at my door. She explained that she was worried about me and wanted to see how I was doing. I invited her in and, over a cup of coffee, I found myself sharing with her details of my near-death experience that I hadn't told anyone else. To my surprise and relief, Isabella listened without judgment. She shared that she had witnessed many unexplainable things in her career as a nurse and that she believed there was more to life and death than science could currently explain. Our conversation stretched into the night, covering topics from spirituality to the purpose of life. When Isabella finally left, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Having someone to share my experience and new insights with was incredibly freeing. As the days turned into weeks, I felt myself getting stronger both physically and mentally. My determination to live a more meaningful and selfless life only grew. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Changing entire lifestyle habits never is, but I was ready for the challenge. As I watched the sun set through my apartment window, I reflected on how drastically my life had changed in such a short amount of time. The skiing accident, which initially seemed like a tragedy, had become the catalyst for a profound and significant transformation. I was eager to see what the future held, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly alive and full of purpose. With my physical recovery progressing well, it was time to start implementing the changes I had planned during my convalescence. The first step was to reevaluate my academic career. While I still valued knowledge and education, I knew I needed to redirect it toward a more altruistic purpose. I scheduled a meeting with the president of the university where I taught. I explained my new vision and proposed the creation of an outreach program that would bring education and resources to underserved communities. To my surprise and joy, the dean was receptive to the idea. He saw the potential to not only help the community but also enrich students' educational experience. Over the next few weeks, I dove headfirst into developing this new program. I worked tirelessly to establish partnerships with local NGOs, including one that worked with homeless children. I recruited enthusiastic fellow teachers and students, forming a team dedicated to making a difference. At the same time, I began to refocus my own academic research. Instead of focusing on esoteric topics that only interested a small circle of experts, I began to explore issues that had a direct impact on people's lives. My new research project investigated ways to make higher education more accessible and relevant to marginalized communities. Outside of work, I also made significant changes. I started dedicating my free time to volunteering. Every Saturday, he went to a local shelter, where he helped serve meals and offered tutoring classes for children. Seeing the direct impact my actions had on these people's lives was incredibly rewarding and constantly reminded me of life's true purpose. My personal relationships also flourished in this new phase. I made a conscious effort to be more present and attentive to friends and family. I hosted regular dinner parties at my home, creating a space for meaningful connections and deep conversations. To my surprise, Isabella became a constant presence at these meetings, and our friendship continued to deepen. However, not everything was easy. I faced resistance from some colleagues who didn't understand my change in priorities. Some accused me of wasting my academic potential. Others simply couldn't understand why I was so determined to change a career that, in their eyes, was already successful. These criticisms sometimes shook me, making me question whether I was making the right decision. In moments of doubt, I vividly remembered my near-death experience, the peace I felt, the wisdom I gained, and the certainty that the true purpose of life was to do good for others. One night, after a particularly challenging day, I shared my insecurities with Isabella during one of our regular dinners. She listened to me patiently and then said something that stuck with me. "Aslan, sometimes the right path is the most difficult. But it is precisely this difficulty that proves that you are doing something that really matters." Your words gave me renewed strength. I realized that the criticism and obstacles I faced were just part of the transformation journey. Each challenge was an opportunity to reaffirm my commitment to my new life purpose. As the months passed, I began to see the fruits of my labor. The outreach program I started was growing and positively impacting hundreds of lives. I received moving letters from students whose lives had been transformed by having access to higher education. I saw children at the shelter where I volunteered flourish with the support and attention they received. My new approach to academic research also began to gain recognition. I have been invited to speak at conferences on inclusive education and social justice. My articles, now focused on practical and relevant issues, were being more widely read and cited than ever before. But what pleased me most was not the professional recognition, but the feeling that I was living a life aligned with my deepest values. Each morning I woke up with a sense of purpose and enthusiasm that I'd never experienced in my former life focused on personal achievement. A year after my accident, I organized a special celebration. I invited friends, family, colleagues, and many of the people who had been impacted by my work over the last year. As I looked around the room, seeing smiling faces and hearing stories of lives changed, I felt an overwhelming wave of gratitude. At that moment, I was sure I had made the right choice. The near-death experience I had in that operating room was not the end of my life, but the beginning of a new one, a life rich in meaning, connection, and positive impact on the world. As I raised my glass to make a toast, I caught Isabella's gaze from across the room. She smiled, her eyes shining with pride, and something else I wasn't ready to name yet. I smiled back, feeling truly alive and grateful for every moment of this new journey. Today, as I write these words, 5 years have passed since that fateful day at the ski resort in Valle de Bravo. 5 years since my life was drastically changed, not just by the accident, but by the transcendental experience that followed it. Looking back, I see how every moment, every decision made since then, has been shaped by that near-death experience. The journey was not easy, but it was incredibly rewarding. The outreach program I started at the university now serves thousands of students from underserved communities across Mexico. Seeing bright young people, who would otherwise not have access to higher education, flourish and achieve their dreams is one of the greatest joys of my life. My research on inclusive education has gained international recognition, leading to changes in educational policies not only in Mexico, but in several Latin American countries. I was recently invited to speak at the United Nations about the role of education in reducing social inequality, but it's not these professional achievements that bring me the greatest satisfaction. It's the daily impact I see in the lives of those around me. The children at the shelter where I still volunteer every Saturday. The students whose lives were transformed by access to education. Colleagues who were inspired to rethink their own priorities and seek a greater purpose in their work. My personal relationships have also blossomed in ways I never could have imagined. I deeply reconnected with my family, repairing bonds that had been neglected for years. I made new friendships based on shared values and a mutual desire to make a difference in the world. And Isabella, well, she became much more than a friend. Our relationship evolved slowly, rooted in mutual respect, deep understanding, and a shared commitment to living a life of service to others. 2 years ago, we were married in a simple ceremony, surrounded by friends, family, and many of the people whose lives we touched together. Reflecting on my near-death experience, I realized that it gave me an invaluable gift: clarity of purpose. I learned that the true meaning of life is not in personal achievements or recognition, but in the good we do for others, the connections we form, and the love we share. This realization fundamentally changed the way I live each day. I wake up every morning with a sense of gratitude and purpose. I see every interaction, every challenge, every moment of joy or sadness as an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to make a difference in someone's life. I don't mean to suggest that my life is perfect or that I have all the answers. I still face challenges. I still make mistakes. I still have moments of doubt. But the difference is that now I see these difficulties not as obstacles, but as an integral part of the journey of continuous growth and learning. If there's one message I'd like to share based on my experience, it's this: don't wait for a moment of crisis to reevaluate your priorities. Life is precious, and every moment is an opportunity to make a difference, to show kindness, to grow, and to love. My near-death experience showed me that there is more to existence than we can comprehend with our rational mind. There is a deep interconnection between us all, a greater purpose that unites us. When we live in alignment with this purpose, when we act with compassion and love, we not only enrich our own lives, but we contribute to uplifting all of humanity. As I look to the future, I feel full of hope and excitement. I know there is still a lot of work to be done, many lives to be touched, a lot of love to be shared. And I am deeply grateful for every day, every breath, every opportunity to live this wonderful and meaningful life. My journey continues, and I invite you to reflect on your own journey. May we all find our greater purpose and live each day with love, compassion, and gratitude. So, what did you think of this incredible story? Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Activate the notification bell to be notified with each new video. Let's bring more people the hope that there is life beyond what the eyes can see.